I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome to the League of Women Voters of Haverford Township's Candidates Forum this evening. We are very pleased to introduce the candidates for commissioners for wards 2, 4, 6, and 8. For the 2nd ward, Mario Oliva and Alison Bausman. For the 4th ward, Bobby Marone and Dan Siegel. For the 6th ward, Ronald O'Connor and Larry Holmes. And for the 8th ward, Gerard Hart. Chris Connell had to be absent. He was in Harrisburg and couldn't get home, but someone is going to read his 3-minute statement for all of us. This forum will be run in accordance with the nonpartisan League of Women Voters format. We will begin with 3-minute statements by each candidate, followed by questions submitted by people in the audience. You will see people going up and down the aisles with cards and little pencils, and you can write down any questions that you have and submit them to those same people going up and down. Please make sure your questions are appropriate for our township commissioners and not national issues such as U.S. taxes, Social Security, and so on. You may direct your question to all the candidates or to those from a specific ward. The other candidates would still have the same amount of time, which is 1.5 minutes, to respond to each question. Since Chris Connell from the 8th ward could not be here tonight, Gerard Hart will not be able to answer questions directed just to the 8th ward. Then the candidates will have 2 minutes each for closing statements at the end. We'll try to end by 8:45. Our moderators tonight come from our community. I'd like to introduce Chris Whiting, President of the Haverford Township Civic Council, and Kennard Wing. And this is Kennard Wing, also from the Civic Council. They will collect the written questions and read them to the candidates. They will not choose a question if it's already been asked, but otherwise will read what you have written. We ask that everyone in the audience be respectful of our moderators and candidates, and that you refrain from applause and verbal comments until after all the candidates give their closing statements at the end. Thank you for doing this. I'd like to remind all of you here and those watching at home that Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th, and voters do not need to have a photo ID for this election. The courts decided not to enforce this new law at this time. However, if you're a new voter voting for the first time, you will be asked to show a photo ID. Or if you are a voter who's now voting at a new precinct, you will be asked for a photo ID. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. In case of a large turnout, you must be in line by 8 p.m. to vote, but you will get your turn. This forum will be broadcast in a few days on the local cable channels in Haverford Township. Now let's begin with opening statements, beginning with the 2nd ward. And thank you very much, Chris and Ken.
Good evening. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this debate, my fellow commissioners and candidates for participating. I also want to thank all of you who took the time to show up here tonight. In our own small way, we each are doing our part to keep the flame of democracy burning. This past Sunday, I had the opportunity to attend the dedication of the new and improved Darby Creek Trail down at Mary Place. It was a beautiful fall day. The leaves on the trees are changing color and the sun was reflecting off the Darby Creek. It was a really nice occasion. As we walked along the trail, I was thinking about how the collective efforts of township personnel, along with volunteers from the Darby Creek Valley Association and the Friends of Haverford Trails, have taken what already was good and made it even better, or have taken what has been spoiled and cleaned it up. Several of the speakers at the dedication mentioned some of the folks who had gone before us, those who had a vision of a trail along Darby Creek, I'm told the trail was first suggested over 100 years ago. Later, I thought to myself, isn't that what we are all trying to do? Aren't we all trying to make Haverford Township, which is already good, even better? And perhaps cleaning up those areas that may have been spoiled. And aren't we all building on the work and the vision of those who have come before us? When I first ran for commissioner 8 years ago, I did so because I thought I could help to make this township, which I grew up in and have always called my home, even better. I promised the residents of the Second Ward that I would work hard to be responsive to them and represent their interests. I believe I have kept that promise. Working with the other members of the Board of Commissioners, township officials, and many volunteer organizations in the community, I strive each day to keep my commitment to the residents of the Second Ward. As I go around the township, and especially the Second Ward, I feel an excitement in the air. People are proud to live in Haverford Township. People recognize the township is on the move. The improvements to the Manoa business area, the development of the quarry, the community facilities at Haverford Reserve, the trails in Lanark and in other areas in the township, the new YMCA in place of the closed down bubblegum factory. All these are the fruits of our collective efforts. My hope and goal is to continue to serve the residents of the Second Ward and make what is already good even better. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming tonight. As you know, my name is Alison Bausman, and I'm running for commissioner in the Second Ward for one reason, and that is to be someone who listens to everyone's concerns. Before we talk about concerns, I too would like to talk about some of the things that we're doing really well, some of the things that make our township great. The beautiful new YMCA, I am so proud of all the people who worked very hard to make that happen. We have a rec center that is first rate in the community recreation center up at Haverford Reserve. It's unmatched, it's beautiful, and I'm very proud of it. We also still have challenges to discuss if we want to move forward and be the best that we can be in the next 50 years. We have infrastructure challenges. Our township buildings need addressing, and our Board of Commissioners is currently discussing that. Our library has mechanical, electrical, HVAC issues that are going to cause those systems potentially to fail in the very near future. Prior boards have discussed this and know that it was a hot button issue in my opponent's first term, and we've continued to band-aid the issue or to kick the can down the road. And I read a book this summer called Confronting Suburban Poverty in America, talking about how suburban communities can be the best that they can, and I'd like to share a quote tonight from that book. It cites a study that identified inner ring first suburbs as places built early in or toward the middle of the 20th century. While many of these communities continued to be healthy and stable, over time others became home to aging infrastructure and inadequate housing stock, as well as deteriorating schools and commercial corridors. And I just remember reading that over and over and thinking, I'm really proud of what's going on in the real estate market in Haverford Township. And we have a first-rate school district. And things such as turning the abandoned bubblegum factory into the YMCA and addressing other commercial corridors within the township, of which we have many, we're doing all of that really well. But if we're missing a piece of this puzzle with addressing our infrastructure in the best way possible, then could it all fall apart? And it's a big, big concern of mine. So I will just say that my intent is to listen to all residents and communicate early and often. That's not always easy to do. I want to use technology to do that and use social media to attract folks to our township and potentially finally see the business development committee that has been discussed by our Board of Commissioners come to fruition. I think that our township needs a business manager's vision, and I think that we need to engage every resident. I'm so proud to see the number of people here tonight. Everyone who's here and everyone who's watching should be proud of their level of engagement in this community. And I just want to thank you for letting me run and for joining us tonight.
For the moment you've all been waiting for, which is your questions answered by the candidates. So I want to just give you guys some advance warning as to how we're going to do this. We're going to switch up the order every time so the same people don't always go first. So for this first question, we're going to start with you, Mr. Siegel, and we'll go to your opponent, and then we'll work down the table that way. Okay, so I'll call on you, but that's to give you a little bit of a warning. So, and just for members of the audience, we're consolidating your questions. Some of you are asking similar questions, and we aren't going to have time to deal with every question that's been submitted. So we're consolidating and grouping them. So this first question is a big one. I have up here something like 6 different cards, but the theme of these cards is about the financial priorities going forward. Several of you mentioned some infrastructure needs. There was specific mention about library, for example. So a township building was mentioned, the administration building. In our questions, people are asking about the police station, roads and bridges. So what our audience is looking for is your statement of financial priorities. We're not going to be able to do everything in the next 4 years. They want to know what your priorities are. What are of those major projects that we talked about, things like police station, administration building, library, other infrastructure, roads and bridges, sewers. Let us know what's important. What do you think the priorities are? Okay. Ms. Bausman?
I think almost all of us would have to agree that making the conditions in which our township employees, especially our first responders, work to be the best they can possibly be. I don't risk my life going to work every day. And I certainly wouldn't work in an office where I had to sit next to a bucket. So I think that we need to hold ourselves to a little bit higher standard there. As a bank manager for several years, before I became a mom here, I was working with businesses and residents of Haverford Township, and I would say there's a lot of places we can go to pay lower taxes, but that's not why we're here. We are here because we want to be the best and because we see that potential for our families. And another thing I learned in banking is that money is a function over time. It's not a static thing. It's not a check that you write today. Money today can be invested wisely and be so much more for our future. Money can be borrowed at different rates at different times. Rates are historically low, and we are poised in a perfect position to set ourselves up to really be grateful for the decisive action that we took in 50 or 100 years, and that's why it's important for me to be here today.
Mr. Oliva?
Thank you. You might want to write this down. I agree with Ronnie O'Connor, believe it or not. This township needs to take the next step. We have YMCA now, we have the quarry, we have our CREC, and now we need to take the next step and put those buildings in place, take care of our infrastructure. A new township building, a new police station, and a library. I believe that working in a township where you're working next to a bucket of water dripping, and that is not what I see for Haverford Township. That's not what I want people, when they come to Haverford Township, to see. I want them to see a beautiful building. I want them to see a nice police station. I want them to see a nice library. We're trying to attract young families to this township. And in attracting those young families to this township, we need to have the services and resources for that. We are a community in which we are close to public transportation, close to the city. It's a great place. We just need to improve on it. We just need to take the next step. And that's what we need to do.
Okay.